What is up, guys? Sorry I'm a little late here to break down the college football slate for today. I feel like I'm all over the place. Didn't get up quite as early as I was, or I have been the last few weeks for EPL. Kind of looked at the showdown slate at 7:30 and rolled back over, but just locked EPL. So ready to dive into college football. Did a lot of my highlights on the sheet last night. So looking forward to that. If you have not joined us, again, over at patreon.com/JagerBombs, I put the link in the chat. Be sure to do that. We got a lot going on over there, even just today. Obviously, EPL, college football, UFC. Kenny's got that covered. And then we got the night race at Bristol tonight. And I don't know if Eric is in here, but I'll actually be out there tonight. A lot of back and forth going on here, things coming up and working out. But as of now, my plan is to be out there tonight, leaving here in probably about 3 o'clock or so. So going to hop right on into college football. It's an interesting slate today. There's a lot of high-price guys that I like. We need to find a little bit of value. I'm hoping some value pops up a little closer to lock a little more. It's the first Saturday slate that I think Virginia Tech's on the slate. Got West Virginia on the road, and I'll get to that game, but it's kind of one that I'm almost crossing off from a DFS perspective. It's not a very interesting blow-up spot fantasy-wise, but we'll get into that. Let's switch on over to the sheet. Let's see here. So the first game that we got up is Nebraska and Oklahoma. Interesting game here. Oklahoma minus 22.5 favorite, 62.5 total. I believe, no, second highest team total on the slate for Oklahoma. I mean, this is a very good spot for them. I think they can blow up. It's just how long do these starters stay in for Oklahoma? Spencer Rattler, I think, is in play. But there's not really a quarterback that I'm in love with today. Like I said, all these prices are up on the guys that I initially want to play. So it might become whatever two quarterbacks fit the rest of your lineup, which is different for me. Usually I'm prioritizing the quarterback with a stack and a receiver, but it might be the other way. I prioritize the receiver, and if their quarterback falls in there, I can go there too. Obviously, that could change if we get some injury news, and I'll post some of that in chat coming up. But if we get some value open up, we could potentially be able to jam in some of these top guys like Spencer Rattler. I think you can go there. The running back situation, still that split, and I'm not touching it. Probably my favorite play in this game is actually Mario Williams. He is down here at 4,100, I believe. Yeah, 4,100. They will not price him up. I mean, he was min priced like the first 2 weeks. 10 catches, 86 yards. He's kind of been running the shorter routes, but 2 touchdowns in his first 2 college games. This guy is a big-time recruit. I think he's got big-time potential, and that's one of our best values so far at 4,100. As for the rest of Oklahoma, I think Marvin Mims, if you play Mims, I think you're stacking him with Rattler. That's kind of where I'm at with Oklahoma. The rest of them you need to stack up. Hazelwood, I think, is similar. I think you need to stack him up as well. So not super interested overall, but the passing game is where I would look. Nebraska, Adrian Martinez is kind of the only guy I would even consider for them. Or Torrey, Samori Torrey has had a good first 3 games. Let me see. Here he is. He's had, in the 3 games, 13 catches for 306 and 2. Also gets some rushing. That's something you see in college with some of these receivers that you don't see in NFL is the 5 attempts for 44 yards and a touchdown. that just adds to his floor a little bit there as well. So he would be the only other option. Oliver Martin, that is news that I'm watching. So we'll be on the lookout for that. I think if he plays, he becomes one of the top two favorite, either Torrey or Martin. But I think if he plays, I'm out on Torrey personally. I think if he does play, Martin would be the only guy that I would play besides Martinez for Nebraska. I mean, Oklahoma has shown a little bit of susceptibility to points being scored on them so far this year. So I think you can go there, but really you got to target their top players. It's Martinez, who's going to run the ball and provide a little bit of a floor. He is priced down a little bit compared to some of these other guys. And it's either Torrey or Martin. Martin there at 6,500 if he's in. That's kind of it for this game. Moving on to the next one, we've got Dove's favorite team. We got Coastal Carolina and Buffalo. Coastal Carolina minus 14 favorite, 58 total. This is kind of an interesting spot for me. I think in the first couple games, Grayson McCall has not had the rushing that we've seen, but he's not really needed to. I don't know that he'll be needed to here, but it is 14 points spread. I think their first couple were a little more than that, and they just kind of got up. They didn't really need to do anything. We saw a big Reese White game last time out. I think Grayson McCall is going to blow up soon because he has that rushing upside. He's got the two receivers. The only two receivers I'm even going to consider with him is Isaiah Likely, the tight end, and Javon Hiley as well. Those are going to be the main two guys that get – I didn't even have him highlighted, but kind of a GPP option at that high price. He's the highest priced. Hiley is the highest priced receiver at 8,300. If you play him, I think you must play Grayson McCall and just hope that this game blows up. I think – you're not playing McCall and two receivers. I think you can play McCall and Hiley or Likely. I'm leaning towards Isaiah Likely at only 4,400. I mean, that is a good value on the slate that we don't have a ton. So I think you can go there. I think the running back situation is a little tough because Reese White's now priced up to 7,700. I don't really like that. He's the highest priced running back on the slate. So that's a no for me. So Shamari Jones would be the only guy that I would consider in that backfield. But like I said, I lean more towards the passing and quarterback run game for Coastal. Buffalo, only one guy that I would even consider is Kevin Marks. I think he gets a lot of the work for them. He's 6,000. Not a good matchup, though. But he's going to get tons of work for them this year. So you could potentially go there if you wanted to, but I do lean more towards the Coastal side. If you all have any questions, any FanDuel love, FanDuel is just not my thing. I think I need to start incorporating it more if I'm going to be providing content for you all. But it is on the sheet, and I can go in and touch on some of my favorite FanDuel targets because they do have the all day. So I'll touch on that more towards the end. If y'all, like I was saying, if you all have any questions, be sure to drop them in the chat and I'll definitely get to them. So moving on, we got the third game of the slate is Michigan State, Miami. This is a fun one. We got Miami as a 6.5 point favorite here at home, 57.5 total. Michigan State's looked pretty good to start the year. I don't know that they should be 7 point or almost 7 point dogs to Miami. Miami has had had the Alabama matchup to start the year, so haven't really got off to a great start. De'Aaron King, I think, is very in play down in the 7K range today. But one of the more popular plays on the slate at running back, I think, is going to be Cameron Harris down at 5,400. The backup is out for the year, so he should get the majority of the work. This was a guy last year who was very tough to play. I mean, we didn't know his workload week in, week out, but now with Chaney out for the year, I think you can definitely go to him at 5,400. It's not an easy matchup again, and they could he could be vultured by De'Aaron King. I do like the passing game a little bit here. This is kind of a sneaky game with a 57.5 total. I think that could get a little back and forth. So I think there's some interesting game stack options here. De'Aaron King, Cameron Harris, and then the receivers, Charleston Rambo and Mike Harley, both in the low 6K range, are fine GPP options. Harley was kind of the guy last year for them on the outside, and Rambo comes over from Oklahoma. So I think you can play either one of them. Keyshawn Smith is 4,400 if you need a little bit of salary savings. And then Will Mallory, the tight end who we played some last year when Brevin Jordan was out for them. I think he's not got a lot of work to start the year, but down at 3,600, I think you can go there. Like I said, we need some salary relief. If you think he gets a little more involved, which I do as the season goes on, I would think he gets a little more involved. He could be an interesting cheap stack with De'Aaron King if you want to go there. On the other side, Kenneth Walker had a big week one, was not used very much last week. I think it was Youngstown State. Obviously, they didn't need him very much, but this is a very good game, I think, for him. It will be closer. I think they lean on him more. 7,100. Kenneth Walker, the Wake transfer. You can definitely go there. He's one of the top running back options for me today. As far as the rest of Michigan State, I'm kind of off. So Jalen Naylor or Jaden Reed, I think the receivers, I think you could go there if you wanted to and you're full on game stacking. But I lean Kenneth Walker as the top option. You could play Walker and then run it back on the other side with the passing game, or just go the two running backs in this game with Kenneth Walker and Cameron Harris. So not a game that I'm completely off of, that's for sure. I think it's one of the more sneaky ones on the slate for sure. The next few are not as interesting to me. Like I mentioned, Virginia Tech traveling to West Virginia today. Not going to give you any homer Virginia Tech picks, that's for sure. I don't like the matchup against West Virginia from a DFS perspective. I think we win. I think we grind it out on the road and get it done. I was surprised we were dogs, honestly. We were 3-point dogs early in the week. This morning it's 1.5. If I had to make a bet on it, which I can't in Virginia, it would be the Tech side for sure. But it's a 1.5-point favorite for West Virginia, 49.5 total. I don't know how we can get excited here. This is almost going to be a cross-off. Braxton Burmeister, word was that he was injured a little bit last week. So if that hampers his running ability at all, he is no good for us DFS-wise. He lost one of the top receivers, James Mitchell, the tight end, out for the year. So a lot more focus is going to be shifted on to guys like Trey Turner and Tavion Robinson. But I just don't like this game. I don't think Burmeister has the upside through the air that we need. Obviously, if I thought he was 100% healthy and he was able to get the rushing ability that he is capable of, we could potentially go there, but not for me. The running back situation is still a mess. We're giving 3 guys carries. I mean, Raheem Blackshear would be the top option out of the backfield, but I'm staying away. I think I'll fade Tech completely today. And then West Virginia is not much better. I think there's one guy that you could even look at for them, and it's Letty Brown. I think Letty Brown is a guy in last year who gets a major workload. He's not had a great start to the year, but he's still getting passing game work, as you can see. Still getting a lot of carries, just not doing a whole lot with him, with 3.3 yards per attempt. And this is not a great matchup against this Tech defense. So almost a stay away in this entire game for me. So moving on, Cincy and Indiana. Cincy a -3.5 total, 49.5 or 3.5 point favorite, 49.5 total. Desmond Ritter is a GPP option. I don't really love where he's priced at 8,600. He's dual threat. We know he can get it done on the ground. If you think he does, go for it. But I think it's tough to figure out who you would pair him with. In the passing game, Tyler Scott at 5,300 has emerged a little bit. Alec Pierce is kind of the guy early in the year that I thought was going to take the reins in this receiving core, but that just hasn't really been the case, whether it's injury or whatever it may be. Josh Weil, the tight end, 4,200. He gets some red zone work, but not super interesting. Jerome Ford, the running back, is 7,000. I think he would be my favorite Cincinnati option today if you're going to them at 7,000. Indiana, little maybe even tougher than Cincy as a dog here, even at home. But again, this is a very low total. I think Ty Freifogel has not had an awesome start to the year like I expected, and I think many expected at 5,900 in a tough matchup. I think I'm staying away. Michael Penix just doesn't do enough with his arm to make me interested in any of his receivers. And then the running back situation, Stephen Carr, the transfer from USC, just not the matchup for me with them. Let me check chat, see if we got any questions. MSU, yeah, I mean, I think that's an interesting dog spot for sure. 6.5. I wish we were getting 7 if in the betting markets, but we're not. But I think like I said, I think you can go there to Kenneth Walker or maybe one of the receivers. Moving on, we got Minnesota and Colorado. Minnesota obviously had the major injury to Ibrahim, the running back. And last week, it looked like Trey Potts, who filled in, got over 30 carries. I mean, they're just going to run every running back they have in the ground, apparently. Whoever gets the start's getting 30 carries. I mean, that's what it seems like. They are dogs on the road to Colorado and another 49.5 total. Not a great spot, but Trey Potts, if he's going to get 30 plus carries again, I think you can definitely look his way. Colorado is not a rush defense that I'm well, actually they are. I was looking at the wrong column, but they have had a good start to the year. 13th in rush defense to start the year. So not a spot that I'm in love with at all. Some injury news we're still looking for is Chris Altman Bell, the receiver. He's 5,800. He's been out to start the year. Did look like he was going to play last week, but then ended up not. But this is not a game that I'm overly excited about at all. I mean, Trey Potts potentially, maybe Altman Bell. Tanner Morgan is no. I'm never going to like Tanner Morgan, I don't think. On the Colorado side, Broussard looks like he's going to play 5,700. I think you could potentially go there. But again, this is not a great matchup against Minnesota and the rest of Colorado. I'm off of. They got injuries. They got suspensions in the receiving core with Fonte Chenault. Not where I'm going to go in this one. This next game is a game that I like the spread. It's probably going to be a part of a parlay that I post in the chat right when we get off here. It's Purdue, Notre Dame. Purdue is a 7.5 point dog. Give me the hook and the Boilermakers, 7.5, 80 or 58.5 total. Notre Dame has looked horrid to start the year defensively. And we got Purdue, who now comes in with David Bell, one of the top receiving options, I think, on the slate today. Gets tons and tons of work for them. He's kind of the main guy in that receiving core now that Rondale Moore is gone. And then Jack Plummer, he can get it done through the air, I think, in this matchup. So he is one that I am interested in. The running back situation is kind of a blah situation for me, not really one that I like to target. Horvath is out, as you might have seen on the sheet. So I'm staying away from that backfield. But Purdue passing game, Plummer potentially, but definitely David Bell is a guy that I'll be targeting today. On the Notre Dame side, they are a very frustrating offense rushing. Kyron Williams just doesn't get the majority of the work that we think he should. So I think I'm staying away from him today. The passing game, Michael Mayer, 7,300, continues to get peppered with targets. Jack Cohn has looked decent because of the volume that he's got. He was pulled last week for the backup for a little bit, but I think if you're full on game stacking, you can play Cohn. He led them to the game-winning drive last week. So I think my favorite two are obviously Mayer and David Bell in this game, and then Plummer would be number 3 if you want to stack this game up a little bit. Georgia Tech and Clemson. Clemson 27.5-point favorite, 52.5 total. This should be a get-right spot for Clemson, who has not been overly impressive to start the year, obviously with the loss to Georgia. So Clemson is kind of a team that if you think they just blow out Georgia Tech, and I think you got to look at it two different ways. You want to take a cheap guy and hope that he gets blowout run, or do you want to go with the main receivers, quarterback, and hope that they are the ones who get the touchdowns early? I think that's the way I would lean. DJ Uyunglele is 8,800 though, so it's not, you're not getting any discount on how he's looked to start the year. He has ran a little bit. I think you could go there. You could pair him with Joseph Ngata at 6,000 and Justin Ross at 6,200. I think those are going to be the kind of the main two as we get going through the year. For them, I think Uyunglele is in a good matchup today, so I can consider him for sure. The running back situation has been very rough. I think I'm staying away for the time being, but if you wanted to go there, this is a good matchup. Georgia Tech is a complete cross-off in this game to me. Yeah, we'll get to that in a few games. It's actually the last game of the slate, but Travion is my guy in the backfield today, so we'll get there for sure. Alabama and Florida. Alabama, 14.5-point favorite, 60 total. So if you look at the totals, the afternoon games, with the exception of Oklahoma, are all the ones over 60. I think you're going to have a lot of backloaded teams early or today with maybe a few pieces going early. But Alabama in a good spot against, or they're always in a good spot. Okay, it's Alabama. Bryce Young is 9,200. I think he's one of the safer plays at the quarterback position. If you think this game stays close, he has one of the biggest upsides at the quarterback position. You compare him with Jamison Williams, the OSU transfer, 6,700. He's broke out a little bit as becoming a go-to guy, had the big touchdown to start the year. John Mechie is 7,100. And then JoJo Earl is 4,500. So those would be my interest in the Bama receivers to pair with Bryce Young. And then going with the backfield, it's a little tougher. Brian Robinson would be the only guy that I would consider in this matchup. As we saw in a blowout, I think it was last week, we were able to target some of those backups, Trey Sanders, Jace McClellan. Not here. I think Brian Robinson would be the only guy that I would consider in that Bama backfield. Florida we still got a quarterback competition going on. It seems Emory Jones and Anthony Richardson. Richardson, I think, was a little banged up last week. So I don't know if we're going to get word on one of those two guys being the guy for today. this is not a spot that I'm dying to target Florida, though, and their receivers are just hampered by the fact that these quarterbacks cannot really throw. It's kind of hard to get there if your quarterbacks can't throw. I mean, they're fairly cheap. Copeland, 5,400. If you wanted to go there, but I don't know why we're stacking against Alabama today. In that backfield, we got a split. So Florida is not a spot that I'm enthused about by any means. USC and Washington State. USC fires their coach last week. Whoops, I'm clicking buttons. Clay Helton gone from USC. They're still a 7.5-point favorite in a 62 total against Washington State. What do we see from USC here? Keaton Slovis does not look great to start the year, 7,200. Could get there through the air in this matchup, though. And there's definitely some injury news that we're watching with Drake London, 7,900, had a massive target share in that first matchup, got a little banged up last week. That's news we're definitely watching, and a reason to backload these teams a little more, because if he is out, I'm going to almost force in Taj Washington at 5,000. Taj Washington is a good play even with Drake London in, even if you think Drake might be a little bit hampered, maybe a little bit limited. I think Taj Washington is one of the top plays on the slate if London is out, though, at 5,000. The rest of the receiving core is kind of a stay away for me, and the backfield just doesn't get enough work. So Washington State side, I think this is an interesting game stack for sure. Jaden DeLaura looks to be the guy at quarterback now after we saw some stuff with them early in the year with Jarrett Garantano coming over from Tennessee. So I think you can definitely go here. If you want a full-on game stack it, I don't see a problem with that. And hope this game just shoots out. You could go something like Taj Washington, Keaton Slovis ran back on the other side with Jaden DeLaura, who will run some. And then Travel Harris, Calvin Jackson. They're going to get work in this passing game for sure. I think those are the top two options for me at 55 and 4,900. Max Borhe is always an interesting guy, but not a spot that I want to target him at 6,700. He's got to get there through the passing game for sure. I think we got a little news. I think some guys with Clemson are questionable. Ngata is one of those. So that's some news just to watch as we get a little closer to lock there. I mean, that game is afternoon. What time does that one start? Let's see here. It's one thing I don't have on the sheet is times, but let's see. Well, my phone is just completely not working. I know it's not like a 12 o'clock clock, 3:30. Of course, it's the first 3:30 game. Even more reason to backload your teams today. So we got a couple games left, Florida State and Wake. And wow, Florida State, what a loss last week. Jacksonville State, now they go on the road to Wake Forest. Do we think they rally and come up after an embarrassing loss? I don't know. But Florida State is just not a spot that I'm in love with today. I suppose you could play Mackenzie Milton. They got some question marks at the receiving core with will Entre Wilson be back? And none of the other guys get enough volume in a run-first type situation. Jashawn Corbin, potentially, if you're game stacking, I think you could go to him or Mackenzie Milton in a game stack. But the Wake side is the side that I like more. Sam Hartman, I think you can definitely pair him up with Jaquil Robertson. 6,800 for Robertson is one of my favorite receivers on the slate with the amount of volume that I expect him to get in a good matchup. As you can see, Florida State has got trounced to start the year, 121st in pass defense. I don't think they fixed it in a week, that's for sure. So Robertson is one of my favorite receivers on the slate. Pair him up with Sam Hartman. And the backfield, Christian Bill Smith and Christian Turner are going to get a split. Obviously, if you're going to go there, I think you lean towards Bill Smith. But I love this receiving core more. Tulsa and Ohio State. We've got Ohio State as a 25-point favorite and a 61.5 total. We saw last week that they were finally knocking down some of this running back depth that they had. That they really keyed in on the two guys, Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams, and that puts me squarely on Travion Henderson at 5,200. We know he's the 5-star guy of the future for Ohio State. I think they get Tulsa on the ground today a little more and try to take a little off of C.J. Stroud. So Travion Henderson is the guy that I want from Ohio State today. But that's not to say I don't want the receivers either. Garrett Wilson is greatly underpriced. I think he's one of the top few on the slate in terms of targets per game to start the year. And I don't know how he's still 6,400. I think him and Olave, as the season goes on, it's going to continue. Get them a little closer in price again. They were right neck and neck all year last year. So Garrett Wilson would be my favorite there. I think I'm staying away from C.J. Stroud at 10,000 today. So I think the route I'm going to go is Travion Henderson and one of the receivers. I like doing that. Smith and Jigba, 5,500. You're only playing him if you're playing Stroud, in my eyes. He had a good week last week. And Olave, you could play him over Garrett Wilson. If I was doing a 20 max, I would have some teams that were Travion and Olave instead of Travion and Garrett Wilson. But that's the route I'm going today, keying a little more on that running game. On the other side, Ohio State has shown a little bit of ability to be scored on so far this year. So you could go to Tulsa if you want some salary relief at receiver. Keelan Stokes is 4,100. Gets involved a little bit of everywhere, and Josh Johnson is cheap at 3,300. But that's kind of where I'm at today. Keying on the later games for the most part. So let's see if we got any questions. Mike is our resident Florida Gator, so I probably offended him. Going to throw 2 INTs. Bryce Young, I don't know, maybe. I can't really get on board with any Gators today. But Richardson, hamstring injury. Emory starting, but Richardson will play. Yeah, that's the deal with me for Florida. I think if I want to go there, it's to one of the quarterbacks because the rushing upside that they have. But if they're going to split, I just can't do it. Yeah, just not for me today. But I'm sure you'll have a Florida stack or two in your lineups today. So if there's any questions, I got to check these EPL scores. I've got a few notifications, and I kind of talked about in GPPs today, stacking the kind of secondary game. I know this is a college football show, and I'll get to the FanDuel. I'm pulling that up actually now. But I talked about stacking the secondary games, the Watford, Norwich, and the Burnley Arsenal in GPPs because Man City and Liverpool were going to be such big chalk today. And it looks like, and I don't know who scored, Emmanuel Dennis, Timu Puki. So both of those games have scored, but not the guys that I liked. So, and Man City and Liverpool have not scored. So I'm pulling up. I'm going to switch over and share my screen to FanDuel. Let's see here. Ole Miss. Let's see. Maybe. Okay. All right. So I've got FanDuel up here. And I think you can see it. Yeah. Okay, so we got Matt Corral as the top at 11-5 against Tulane. These guys are going to score on everybody all year. So, yes, definitely. I mean, Ole Miss, I'm never going to tell you not to stack Ole Miss. It's just a matter of who are you pairing him with. I think, well, Drummond is fine. Let's see. Let's see here. Let me pull up to our night sheet. Um, this is another problem I have with doing a college football sheet for the FanDuel slate. That the main slate for DraftKings, which I feel like I have to separate, is not doesn't have all the games that FanDuel does because they do the all day deal. But yeah, Matt Corral is a fine option. I'm assuming the Virginia, UVA and UNC. That is a game that I'm looking at for sure tonight, and I like both sides of it. I think you can play Sam Howell. I think you can play Josh Downs. He's had a good start to the year. I think that's a route you can go. And then on the other side, you have Virginia, who is even cheaper, it looks like, on FanDuel. Brennan Armstrong, 9,900. I think I would play him before I play Hal. He's got the rushing upside. And you don't even have to pair him with a receiver. But if you did want to, Keaton Thompson, I think he's a quarterback converted to running back or wide receiver. I could be wrong on that, but I think he is a quarterback converted to a receiver. We've not had them on a slate this year, but I think I remember that. But that's my favorite game of the night slate as of right now. Obviously, it's the second biggest total and the biggest total with the close spread. I think Ole Miss and Tulane are both interesting. Let me see the prices on Tulane on FanDuel because tonight I think they're very interesting as the run back on the other side. It's only a 14-point favorite for them. Let's see here. Yeah, so Deuce Watts. What is Pratt? Pratt's 9,700. I think you can go there. That's kind of what I think I would do is kind of stack up both sides of that game because a lot of people are just going to look at the Ole Miss side and say, well, yeah, they're projected to score 45 points. Let's just go to that side. But I think you can play the Tulane side as well. I mean, this is a 76.5 total. They're projected for over 30. So I think Michael Pratt is interesting if you want to go that route. But those are my two favorite games right now is obviously the UVA and UNC game. And I actually lean more towards the UVA side there, even as 7.5-point dogs. It's the second 7.5-point dog I've liked today. So maybe that's the route we're going. But Ole Miss, yeah, I mean, they're the top offense, one of the top in the country. So you can definitely go there. Let's see if I had any more questions. And I'm going to hop on off here. No more, but be in the chat. We got about an hour and 15 till lock. Like I said, I'm going to be backloading, I think, today. I think there's really, or maybe only one guy that I have in my placeholder that's in the early games. Let me check here. And it's Mario Williams, as I talked about it being one of my favorite values. Let's see. I lied. I have Cameron Harris in my holder right now, but obviously that's going to change. I might end up off of Cameron Harris. I'm not enthused to play him at all, so that could be one that I end up off of. But like I said, I'm going to have a lot of these late games today. Travion Henderson's late. I think we got an interesting dynamic today that maybe we get some news later in these games or later in the day. As we run up close to these games, people have already played the early ones, stacked up Oklahoma, and maybe they don't put up as many as everybody thinks. And then we get some news and get some value in these late games that we can go to. So that's kind of where I'm going today. Good luck to everybody. Chris is thinking of doing a NASCAR show. Not sure on the time yet, but I'll be on the lookout for that if that's something we do. But we'll definitely have the race covered tonight. Good luck to everybody with everything else today. I know UFC lock is a little early as well, but join us in the Discord. We got all those covered and all sheets for all these sports. So again, $10 for one sport, $20 for all. Be sure to hop in there. Good luck to everybody today. We'll see you next time.